It started. When he's done, just turn that off. And
All right, CCRPI score has come out and has not been released to the public yet. It'll be released to the public on the 29th. So it's what you call embargo is behind the portal, which when you talk about the portal, that's something that us as administrators have access to. They send it out in bits and pieces, you know. So like whenever the content mastery come, they'll send that, and then eventually they get to the whole score. So we're gonna compare last year's score to this year's score. Okay, and the formulas were different. I don't know if y'all remember, but we went over the CCRPI score and how everything has changed. But the formula is different. But last year you had exceeding the bar points. They've done away with those. And then they've changed where progress was 40% of your score. It went to 30%. And then last year you had that, but then they subtracted that. So I think our score wound up being 69 something. But anyway, so we're gonna look at both and compare and see where we were last year and how we did this year. If your department is not quite where it needed to be, don't worry. We're going to do some work, look at some data, and see what we need to do to get you where you need to be. All right, so the first thing we'll look at is our score. Our score last year, like I say, was 72 minus the challenge points, which dropped us below 70. This year, our score was 72.4, but that's minus challenge points. That's the score. Now, Zingram did the calculations. If we would have, if they used the same calculations on last year, this would have jumped up to what was it?
84.7.
This would have been an 84.7 on last year's calculations. But that's true fashion of the state. You know, once you think you got it, then they go change the game on you. Buckle up. We got a governor election coming up, and both of them, I was looking at the debate the other night, and both of them they're gonna make education great again.
Yeah.
So y'all know what that means. And we always tell you, in education, whenever it's politics, every so many years, there's gonna be some adjustments and some changes. So that's one of those things we cannot control, so we don't lose sleep. All right, the components that make up the CCRPI scores: content mastery, progress, closing the gap, your readiness, and your graduation rate. So our content mastery last year, and when you go to content mastery, it's under achievement. And of course, we'll look at math, science, English, and social studies. So when you look at, go up to the top. When you look at, we'll look at one at a time. What is this? This is ninth grade literature. They were a 55.6, and then American literature was a 50.2. What they do is they give you your individual scores and then they combine them, all right, so that you can get a score for your CCRPI. So 55.6 and 50.2 this year. Ninth grade lit was a 66.5, and American lit was a 50.2. So you see there was a gain there, all right, especially in ninth grade literature. All right, in mathematics, Algebra 1 was a 29.1, and then geometry was a 49.2. This year in mathematics, algebra jumped from a 29 to a 48, and geometry dipped a little bit, but the overall score in combining them was 40.75. So going in the right direction. All right. Physical science and biology. Physical science was a 47.9. Biology was a 36.6. Physical science a 92.7 and biology a 58.2. All right, so y'all doing y'all thing. All right, in social studies, U.S. history was a 50.2 and econ was a 40.3. Social studies, we dipped a little bit in U.S. history, and econ pretty much stayed the same. So 46.8, and then 40.5. All right, so, all right. Then what you do, you go here, and it'll show you what your beginning, your development, and proficient learner. They'll show you those rates. And then you have flags. Go to last year's flags. All right, so they give you flags, performance flags. All right, they give you performance flags to kind of show you basically how you've done in each of your content areas, whether you met, whether your group met your participation rate, whether they met their performance target, or whether they met their subgroup target. So if you got a green flag, you basically met everything, subgroup target and performance target. If you got a red flag, this one you didn't meet anything. This one here, you had enough people participate, but they didn't perform well. So basically you met the number of kids that took the test, but they didn't perform well. Yellow is the you're on your way, basically. You didn't meet, and it just depends on whether you have a PS, a PSG, a S, or whatever. Like if it's just with an S, subgroup met state, but not the subgroup performance. So, you know, different. Even the flags have changed a little bit. You don't have as many. And what the state call themselves doing is kind of streamlining this process a little bit. But you remember these flags, and you see all the red. The only thing we had green in is our black graduation rate and our economically disadvantaged. All of our students fits under the economically disadvantaged category. So that's why you'll see a lot of times when it's all and economically disadvantaged, those scores will be the same, because that's all of our students fit under that category. Okay? Now, you see those flags. All right, let's go to, all right, English language arts. You see the difference. Green is good. Green with a star is even better. So your English language arts, here's the targets for all students, and they met their target, so they got a green flag. Economically disadvantaged, you met your target, but you have a star there, and what the star means is the subgroup met 6% improvement in that target. So we get, the green flag is 1 point. If you get a star, you get 1.5 points. So outstanding job on English language arts in meeting your targets. Look at our students with disabilities in English language arts. I mean, there's the score. Look what the target was. The data don't lie. They doing something right down there. Okay, because the data don't lie. So great job. Remember, this is a baseline year. This is a baseline year. So what does that mean? That these scores here will jump over here and become your target for next year. So you already know what your targets are. So students with disabilities, that 30 right here is going to be over here. All right, so we got to meet that target. All right, but y'all getting it done. Good job. All right, we go to science. I'm sorry, mathematics, I'm sorry. All right, I don't know where that group came from. That multiracial, we've never had that before, but 15 students make up a subgroup. And I think what we had, well, I know, what happened was in the summer, we had a couple seniors that, for some reason, as ninth graders, didn't take the algebra milestone. They took it this summer because you had to have it to graduate, and then that gave us a subgroup, okay? Which is not an issue. All right, so you can see all students, again, economically disadvantaged. All right, our students with disabilities didn't quite make the mark, but however, they made progress. All right, they didn't quite make their target, but they're making progress. And that's the kind of stuff you want to see. And here are the numbers, so you can see that it wasn't missed by much. But we made our targets, and if you remember the flags, then I'll go back to the old flags. Remember the flags? All right, here are the flags for ninth grade lit. Here's the flags for American lit. Here's the flags for math. And here's the algebra, and here's the flags for geometry. So you can see that definitely headed in the right direction. All right, and then in science, okay, y'all see science met all of their targets. Here's all students. Here's our economically disadvantaged. Of course, you got the star. Students with disabilities have the star. So, of course, that's all good. Here's the score. Here, so of course, these will become the targets for next year. All right, so we've got all graded. So good job in science. All right, social studies did not quite hit the mark, but we'll be getting with social studies and talk about this so we can see. But we did hit the mark with our students with disabilities. As you can see, our students with disabilities, the target is here, and y'all see where they go now. So that becomes the target. All right. Now we have resource in some classes. I know we got, this year we got it in math, and we have it in science, in biology, and then we do have it in U.S. history. And our resource teachers, I know in science is Ms. McCaskill, in math is Mr. Mathis. English is all co-taught, right? And then in U.S. history is Coach Stevens.
Dr. Gray, do those baselines reset? Do the targets, the scores we got last year?
That's correct.
So
these scores here become your target. Okay? So these scores here become your target. Well, actually, since we didn't meet, these targets will stay the same. All right? These targets will stay the same because actually our scores are lower. So these targets will remain the same. Now this target here will come over here. But I got a whole case of Red Bull for Coach Stevens right there. So he can continue pressing on with that as well. All right, let's go back to science and look at our students with disabilities. All right, that's your resource. That's Ms. McCaskill right there. All right, so we'll give her some Red Bull too. And math, we didn't quite make it with our students with disabilities, but as a group last year, we were almost there, and we got confidence in Coach Mathis that that star's going to turn green. No pressure, no pressure, no pressure. So, just wanted to share that with you. You need to give yourselves a round of applause for a job well done. And the data don't lie. The data don't lie. So let's just keep doing what we're doing. You know, we'll keep working. If we didn't quite hit the mark, we'll keep working to get better. But the main thing, y'all, is show last year's flags again. picture's worth 1,000 words. Picture's worth 1,000 words. And in the calculations, in the calculations, again, if we were to use the same formula, because actually, which one did we achieve more in? Progress?
It was our progress. We went up so much on our progress points that it was going to give us a boost of about 10 points in CCRPI. And then when I got to doing the calculations, I noticed that they had taken, like the pass rate for the milestones and stuff, they had taken that percent and cut it by 10%. So the gain that we made, actually, we turned around and lost in the new formula. Which every school is going to lose it, but still it was hard to me to swallow when we had done so well and it was taken away, I felt like.
And that's all the way across the whole state. So actually 72 in the old target would have been an 80 something, which would have been wonderful, but 72 in the new formula is actually, it's going to be pretty decent. Okay, so it's going to be pretty good. But the biggest thing I wanted you guys to see is we're making progress. We're on our way. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, Ms. Dickers was saying when she called, all of the schools in our district were not. I mean, 81% on progress is big. I mean, it's almost so good to the point that our goal is so high now. You know, because we did so well. But 81% overall is pretty good, because you can see the state score was only an 83, so we were right there with the state pretty much.
What's the next one? And remember, when we say other schools, we don't compare. When you talk about elementary, primary, that's apples and oranges. We just compare with high school, you know, because if they get I don't know what their progress was, but whatever it is, we can't compare with the schools in our district. We compare with the other high schools in the state. And then, what was the other? Closing the gap. Look at your closing the gap, y'all. Look at the state and look at ours. Ain't nothing Dr. Gray did. It's what you guys did. You guys are the ones in the trenches. Whether it's PE and every Friday, and fine arts, and CTAE, every Friday going to get them carts and doing the reading strategies and looking at the vocabulary, that makes a contribution to our overall score. Whether it's our content areas, formatively assessing every day, tutoring morning and night. I hadn't done one tutoring. Now, I do some counseling, but I hadn't done one tutoring. And as far as we're concerned, from an administrative staff, we're here to support you guys. It's from our counselors, you know, just supporting and making sure that the students are mentally, you know, prepared, and making sure whatever issues that they're having, we can get them at least thinking properly so they can go back to class and do what it is what they're supposed to do. So everybody makes a contribution. Our foreign language department, they grab and they do their reading and work on the vocabulary. So everybody has a part in making this in making this gap. But you are the ones in the trenches. I tell y'all that all the time, and how much we really appreciate, you know, the work and the effort that you all do. Working at Washington County High School is not easy. We require a lot. But with our demographics, we have to require a lot. Because if we didn't, we'll be like some of these other schools that you'll see when the scores come out and they on some type of assistance, or the state is in there trying to help them and things like that. Our demographics requires tutoring in the mornings and sometimes in the afternoons. You know, our demographics requires that we cannot have class disruptions. We got to get them out so that we can have class. That's what our demographic requires. Our demographic requires that we have ZAP, and zeros are not permitted, because we have some students that'll just take that zero and be done with it. You know, our demographics requires portfolios for students that fail, so we can look at it and see why they failing, so we can make that adjustment. All that information comes from you all. Our demographic requires. Our demographics require testing and retesting, teaching and reteaching. It requires halt time. It requires an extended learning period. It requires data debriefings. That's what our demographic requires. And that's what you guys in the trenches, that's what y'all do. And as your principal, I appreciate you so much, and have a great day.